it got worse. Once those 10 or fewer people had yanked their hankies and honked their noses, and my funeral was over, the number one factor that would determine how many people would go on from the funeral to attend the actual burial would be the weather. The weather? If it happened to be raining, it said, 50% of the people who attend my funeral would decide not to go to my burial after all. I really couldn't believe it. You mean I'm lying there at the grand conclusion of everything I've ever said and done, of everything I call my life, in those final moments when my entire life is called to account and acknowledged and memorialized by those nearest and dearest to me, those whose lives I've most deeply and profoundly touched. And half the congregation checks out halfway through because of the weather? Oh, at first this really bummed me out. And then it was liberating. If the odds are that iffy as to whether or not they even cry at my funeral, and chances are 50-50 that they'll duck out anyway before I'm planted if the sky happens to cry for me more than the people do, then why am I spending so much time worrying about what they're thinking now? Why would I be afraid of rejection? Why would I be concerned about what the majority thinks? Why would I be worried about what the 95% say, think, or do? Reading that article enlarged my comfort zone and gave me an edge of courage, just a tiny edge, but an edge I hadn't had before, a slight edge. A few days later, I happened to be thinking about that article as I sat in my car, stopped in traffic. Just then I saw why we were all stopped. A funeral procession went by. It took less than a minute because it contained only a few cars. As traffic started slowly moving again, I thought, that person lived his or her entire life worrying about what other people thought. And it suddenly hit me. Who has long funeral processions? At whose funerals do thousands cry? For whom do the millions mourn? For those who will do what others are not willing to do. For the people for whom we erect statues. Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Lincoln. Gigantic funerals are held, and great crowds, sometimes entire nations, mourn for those people who spent their lives not worrying about what others thought. Chapter 8. Faces of the Slight Edge. There are several faces of the slight edge I want to point out to you, because they each represent a power that, once you recognize it in your life, you can harness in your pursuit of your dreams. They are momentum, completion, habit, reflection, and celebration. Harness the power of momentum. Who won the race, the tortoise or the hare? We all know the answer to that one. Yet we live in a world where most everyone has come to expect instant this and instant that. And if we don't get the results we're after faster and faster, we quit. The slight edge is simple disciplines compounded over time. That's how the tortoise won. That's how you get to be a winner too. Having said that, let me ask this. What's the real point of the story of the tortoise and the hare? All together now. Slow and steady wins the race, right? But notice something here. The point is not that there's any special virtue to moving slowly. There's nothing inherently good about slowness, and it's just as possible to move too slowly as to move too quickly. The key word in the Aesop moral is not slow, it's steady. Steady wins the race. That's the truth of it. The fable of the tortoise and the hare is really about the remarkable power of momentum. A body at rest tends to stay at rest, and a body in motion tends to remain in motion. That's why your activity is so important. Once you're in motion, it's easy to keep on keeping on. Once you stop, it's hard to change from stop to go. A Chinese proverb says it well. Be not afraid of going slowly. Be afraid only of standing still. In my business, I coach people how to build large organizations one person at a time, with very simple, easy-to-do actions done every day. I've found that it's far more effective to take one business-building action every day for a week than to take 7 or 10 or even 24 all at once and then take the rest of the week off. People who do the first, week in and week out, build an organization. People who do the second don't, even if they actually take a greater number of those business-building actions than the other people. Why not? no momentum. After 6 days off, they have to start all over again, getting themselves geared up and inspired to get back into action. It can take a good amount of energy and initiative to get yourself started in a new activity, but it takes far, far less to keep yourself doing it once you've started. There's another reason once a day is better than 7 times once a week. The daily rhythm of the thing starts to change you. It becomes part of your routine, and as it does, it becomes part of who you are. That doesn't happen with a once-in-a-while all-out effort. Imagine taking a 20-minute brisk walk in the morning and then in the late afternoon, working out in a home gym for another 20 minutes. Now, imagine that for a week you did that every day. How would you feel at the end of the week? Now instead, what if on that first day you had taken a 140-minute walk, that's over 2 hours, and that afternoon spent another 140 minutes on the home gym, and then done nothing for the next 6 days? Steady wins the race. When you're in motion, it's also far easier to make positive changes in your direction. It's like steering a car. When the car is sitting still, moving the wheel is hard work. But when it's moving, even at only 10 or 20 miles per hour, turning is a breeze. It's a breeze because you're already in the flow. Harness the power of completion. Another way you gather momentum and harness it to your advantage is by practicing an activity called completion. Are there any things that are incomplete in your life? Any unpaid bills? Have you done your taxes? Did you borrow a book or tool you have yet to return? Is there someone who needs to hear you say, "I love you," or "I'm sorry," or "Thank you, I appreciate you"? Do you have any unfinished projects? Any unkept promises? Like taking a weekend away with your spouse, or taking your kids somewhere special? Are there any agreements or commitments you've left hanging? Each and every incomplete thing in your life or work exerts a draining force on you because it blocks your momentum, inhibits your ability to move forward, to progress and improve. Incomplete things keep calling you back to the past to take care of them. Here's the unfortunate and powerfully destructive truth of being incomplete. It keeps the past alive. Remember, people who live on the success curve are pulled by the future, while those who dwell on the failure curve are pulled by the past. And a surefire way to be forced to live as a prisoner of your past is to not complete things. Is it easy to do? Yes. Wait, let's consider that for a moment. No, actually, it's not always easy to complete those incomplete things in life. Not when you've got a truckload of them to take care of. That stack of incompletions can loom larger than the Sears Tower. They can be absolutely overwhelming, especially when you realize that whatever might have been keeping you from completing them in the first place, fear of confronting the issue, feeling intimidated or overwhelmed by it, worrying that it might be difficult or uncomfortable, well, all of that has been compounded by the slight edge too. That's the slight edge working against you. That's how the pile got so big to begin with. And the truth is, even those incompletions that seem difficult would have been a lot easier to do when they first came up than they might be now. Approaching that stack of undones with the slight edge in hand is not only the best way to deal with them, it's the only way you'll ever deal with them. Take on those incompletions in your life just as you took on learning to walk. Baby steps, one at a time, letting the slight edge work for you to help you complete whatever needs completing. Take on any one of your incomplete projects one at a time. And even if that one project seems too huge a mountain to climb, rummage around in its foothills until you find an initial step you can take. The biggest meal is still eaten one bite at a time. So find something you can do and do that. Make a phone call, write a letter, give 15 minutes to completing something every day. Is it easy not to do? Absolutely. And if you don't do it today, will it destroy you? Well, you know the rest, so sing along. Each time you do complete something, you get to move on with your luggage a little lighter and a bit more spring in your step. Harness the power of habit. Although the following bit of wisdom has been attributed to various people, there is no known originating author. But the wisdom isn't diminished, and it is proven in every one of our lives every day. Sow an act, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. Sow a character, reap a destiny. We often take habits for granted. There are bad habits you try to break but can't. Good habits you wish you had but don't. Annoying habits others have you wish they didn't. And odd habits you picked up yourself somewhere for reasons